Welcome to the Jefferson County Board of Education regular meeting on Monday, February 14th, 2022. If you would please join us for the pledge. All right, I believe we have some student and staff recognitions this evening.
Yes, ma'am. We had student and staff recognitions scheduled, and due to some unfortunate medical circumstances, those individuals weren't able to join us, and we're going to have to reschedule. And we also had individuals who had, quite frankly, concerns about attending this meeting, given the content of the meeting and their concerns about their children. So we will resume staff and student recognitions at our next board meeting.
Well, I can fill in with a quick impromptu staff recognition. I just want to do a shout out to our staff for not only doing their job, but there was an incident at Washington High School about a week ago where a student got into a car accident leaving the school. And, you know, a young driver, first accident, she was pretty shaken. And one of our staff members just jumped out of her car, went to her, you know, was there for her, helped her grab her stuff, waited there till her parents got there. And it just was, you know, definitely not in her job description to do, but it was a very, very thoughtless, but important. And, you know, I'm just grateful that she did do that, because I do know the student that was involved, and that really made a difference to that child that was in distress at the moment. So thank you, you know, very much to our staff that did that. All right, Deputy Superintendent for Instructional Support update, Mr. Banks.
Good evening, everyone. Just want to bring you up to speed on a few things from the Department of Instruction. First of all, I'd like to let you know, after quite a bit of time and deliberation, Policy 2510 has been approved by the West Virginia Department of Education. They're now training districts across the state. We went to a training last week to hear updates on the secondary portion of 2510. And then next month, we will hear more about the elementary portion. For those of you who don't know what Policy 2510 is, it's assuring the quality of education. It's the regulations for all of our educational programs. So as we dive into that and really understand the changes, we will bring that back to the board and fill you in on what those changes are. Also, I wanted to let you know it is February and we're right in the middle of all of our academic competitions and fairs. So I wanted to give you a little bit of an update there. Our middle school regional science fair is February 18th. Our high school regional science fair is the 25th. Our county social studies fair is February 19th. And we're also in the middle of Golden Horseshoe competition. We have completed the written essay part of that on February 8th. And the online portion is February 23rd. The Golden Horseshoe is for our 8th graders. Math Field Day occurred last week across the district. History Bowl, which is available for middle schools, that competition is February 25th. And then we are also in the middle of West Virginia Young Writers competition. So lots of things going on, and I wanted to let you know those dates. The next item on the list is something I've brought to you before, but there have been a significant number of questions related to, so I thought I would go back and repeat the procedures a little bit and add a couple items to it. First of all, for our instructional materials adoption, we are in the middle of ELA. We have that on our agenda asking for your approval tonight. And now we have started the science adoption, and our committees are meeting and listening to the digital instructional caravan. So we'll be back before you in a couple of months asking the same of science. So I did want to just, again, review some of these items. And this will also help answer some questions that we've been receiving. First of all, the adoption is not decided by the district when that occurs. The state has a 6-year cycle. The ELA, English Language Arts adoption, is from 2021. Jefferson County Schools decided to delay that a year, which is perfectly acceptable. So we have our ELA adoption in front of you tonight. The 21-22 adoption is science. And so we will be bringing that to you in a couple months. So we're actually working through 2 adoptions this year. But again, that schedule is set by the West Virginia Department of Ed. Also, the materials that we review, they must meet the criteria set forth by the Department of Ed. And in particular, there's a set of standards that they have that are called non-negotiable criteria. So again, several people have asked about this, so I wanted to put this out there tonight. So those non-negotiable criteria include that the materials must be interethnic. That means that they must meet the requirements of interethnic concepts, content, and illustrations as set forth by West Virginia Board Policy 2445. Secondly, they must provide equal opportunity. So what that means is the resource meets the requirements of equal opportunity, concepts, content, illustration, heritage, roles, contribution, experiences, and achievements of males and females in American and other cultures. Next is format, and this is a fairly recent one within the last 10 years. The resource includes an interactive electronic digital component for students. Number 4 is bias. The instructional resource is free of political bias. And then finally, number 5, the instructional resource is not referenced. The Common Core standards are not referenced in the instructional materials. So those are the non-negotiable criteria that we must adhere to, that the Department of Ed screens and vets prior to those materials coming our way for our review. The next part is completely repetitive. I brought this information to you a few months ago, but just because of the questions that have come our way, I just wanted to mention that our instructional resource committee is made up entirely of teachers and academic coaches. This decision that we bring forward tonight is completely 100% decided by our experts in the classroom, our teachers and coaches. So we hire the committee. The next step is that committee reviews materials. Then the members ensure that those materials are shared with the teachers across the district and in their schools. And then the schools vote on the options presented and a recommendation is sent to me. That committee then presents a recommendation to the board as we did about a month ago. And then tonight you have it on the agenda for your requested approval. And then finally, once the board approves the materials, then Jefferson County Schools sends that list of approved materials onto the Department of Education. So again, that should help answer quite a few questions that we have had since the materials have been out for review. So that is my update for this evening.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Sure.
And they give us 2 different options the state usually does to choose from, or 3 different options to choose from? What do they usually give the teachers or the?
It's not a set number each time. It usually depends on what vendors request to be part of our adoption. It could be 5 or 6, it could be 8 or 10. Depends. And if you look at the difference between ELA and science, there's a it's a pretty big difference in number just from the two of those.
Okay. And do you remember how many options our teaching staff had to choose from for this ELA adoption?
Maybe I could get some help on this. We had 10. Yes,
Okay.
10 options to choose from.
Okay. And those are all vetted from the state ahead of time?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, approval of minutes. Is there a motion to approve the minutes from the regular board meeting held January 24th, 2022, and the special board meeting held January 31st, 2022, and February 7th, 2022? Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Any question or discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes from January 24th, January 31st, and February 7th, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, citizens' comments. Just a reminder that all speakers are limited to 3 minutes. Speakers are prohibited from making negative or derogatory comments using a name or position by which an individual can be identified. Comments may not be threatening, profane, vulgar, or abusive, or the speaker will be required to cease his comments. First one up is via Zoom. It's Jason Hawkins, followed by Joanne Curran. Mr. Hawkins? Okay. Give me just one moment here. Whenever you're ready, sir.
Good evening, President, members of the board. I'm a father of 2 children that attend Jefferson County School. And over the last few months, I've seen a couple of instances where mass or public notification were needed. And I've also realized that there's some inconsistencies and issues with how they're presented, in what format, what medium, and what information they address, and whether or not they actually look at answering questions before they're asked when they send this information out. I won't go into the details of the specific incidences, just so operational procedures and all that stuff don't go out. But what I'm wondering is there a communications policy for the county or the individual school setup? And when you have an incident where it's needed, whether it's a notification for weather or something more severe, is there an after action review that's done afterwards to kind of identify these gaps and then close them for an incident going forward? Because the 2 incidences that I'm thinking of, there was enough gap between the 2 of them where that could have been feasibly done, but it seemed like the information flow still had the same issues along with them. So essentially what I'm asking is there a policy, and is an occasional review done to ensure that it does identify issues moving forward? And if not, please consider looking through it, reviewing it, staffing it, finding out what issues that people are having with the standards and procedures, and potentially move forward with a more efficient, more coherent policy to where we can more faithfully communicate what we're trying to get across to parents and such, and minimize any confusion that comes from that. So that's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Joanne Curran, followed by Judy York.
Hey, I'm zooming in tonight from the free state of Florida, where it's 75 degrees and COVID is never a topic of daily conversation. Nothing is mandated or traced. Students are happy, healthy, and doing well in school. Anybody who wants to wear a mask does, and we're all friends. I hope tonight you will decide it's time to join me. Like watching a child's first steps is the joy of watching students take their first deep breath of free air in 2 years and to love school again. Last month, I asked you some questions regarding the new Amplify ELA curriculum proposal. Then I emailed you all twice. I received one partial answer for viewing the material online. Still, the questions and answers remain a secret even after Mr. Banks's remarks. Why is this program on the table now? What's its purpose? What's it replacing? Why does it need to be replaced? How much does it cost? Where's the money coming from? Was it ever communicated to the general public other than the few people watching the board meetings? Were parents notified through the schools? I haven't found any. Will any feedback even matter? Or is this just a superficial formality? But my real concern is the content of Amplify. America is a grassroots country. Any changes coming from the top down always have financial and social agendas with strings. You may elect local school boards, but they are controlled by the national teachers' unions and government funding. Amplify does make teaching kind of idiot-proof. The software does everything, and you could get by with way less teachers, maybe even aides to monitor. I'm not sure that's the standard we want. However, digging deeper, I see agenda, bias, indoctrination, and identity engineering. These are the things that get parents riled up. And here's some more interesting finds. Rupert Murdoch, the global media mogul and billionaire, originally started this company under the name Wireless Generation, whose stated goal was to replace teachers with digital curriculum. The curriculum is said to move so quickly that teachers and students have no time for creativity. All classes must move in lockstep at the same speed. Those left behind are just pushed smoothly along, never to catch up. Just repeat after me and say as I say, which is the goal of socialist groupthink. Murdoch sold the company at a loss of millions in 2015 during his own legal battles to cover up sexual assault. It was then bought by Lauren Powell Jobs. That's Mrs. Stephen Jobs. She's listed as an activist for education reform, social redistribution, environmental issues, journalism, and media. Mrs. Jobs also said we need the curriculum because teachers are too stupid. And her most powerful role is donating millions to every major Democrat socialist candidate. Back to my questions. Why this? Why now? Parents, if they don't care about us now, this will be the final piece of the generational transformation in public schools. But it can change on election day.
Thank you, ma'am. Next up is Judy York, followed by Mia Humphreys.
Hi, Judy York, and I just want to say, first of all, happy Valentine's Day. Today, our elementary students exchanged cards with all their classmates, whether they were good friends or not, whether they got along or not, or whether they agreed or not. And while this practice tends to begin and unfortunately end in elementary school, it's a good reminder that even as adults tonight, we still have it in us to be kind and respectful to each other, despite our differences in background and opinion. And I hope that's the case. As a parent, I appreciate the opportunity to have input into my children's education with the school board and over the years in conversations with my teachers and my kids' teachers. And tonight I want to express my support of the proposed ELA curriculum. I've been impressed by the local teacher-led review process from the teachers I've heard from. I believe it will be supportive of both them and our students. I've also been impressed that Ed Reports in their own independent teacher-led evaluation process gave all three of the proposed curriculum their top rating. I reviewed the curriculum online and have been impressed by the thoroughness and broad range of materials. I'm especially pleased to see many diverse voices and stories represented. I was an English major in the late 80s when E.D. Hirsch published Cultural Literacy, which generated a lot of debate in my classes. In his book, he listed 5,000 topics he claimed every American needs to know to be culturally literate. Yet 90% of what he included was written by white men. As elitist as that sounds now, these were primarily the writers that were included in the American literature courses I took as a student from kindergarten through college. Back then, I had to take special classes to study writers who were women or people of color. So when I was choosing a homeschooling curriculum during the pandemic, I looked with a skeptical eye at Core Knowledge, which was founded by Edie Hirsch and is partnered with one of the two proposed curriculum under review tonight. Yet what I found is that over the past 30 years, there's been a welcomed broadening of the study of American literature in the classroom. So much now that Edie Hirsch's famous "What Every K through 8th Grader Needs to Know" embraces a multitude of diverse voices, stories, and writers. What educators have found is that when you bring in different stories and experiences, it enhances education as it expands awareness and understanding. This facilitates shared culture and shared community, and facilitates students' ability to think critically, debate freely, and wrestle with complex topics and histories. And these are the skills that give rise to both individual and collective opportunity for our future here in Jefferson County and throughout our country. So thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Mia Humphreys, followed by Samantha Fridley.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, awesome. I just wanted to take a moment to thank all the members of the board and Dr. Gibson for all the hard work you guys have put in this, especially this last year, and trying to keep our kids safe and addressing all of the concerns around the mask mandates, and doing just a great job of helping keep schools open and our kids in school. So not much to offer this evening except a sincere thank you. And I know I speak on behalf of a lot of parents who are also very grateful for what you all have done this past year. So that's about it. Have a great night.
Thank you. Next up is Samantha Fridley.
Hello,
Good evening.
my name is Samantha Fridley. I am a senior at Jefferson High School. I'm here tonight to bring awareness to an issue, which is mental health, and offer my full support in you guys and the Board of Education in general to make it right. A little bit of background on myself. At the age of 10, I was diagnosed with severe depression and anxiety due to bullying that I was a victim of. In 5th grade, I went through something very traumatic, which would cause me to be in and out of hospitals for suicide attempts until the age of 17. Last year in April, I received treatment at a place called Newport Academy, where I was there for 54 days and I recovered and processed my trauma. I now advocate for mental health and try to break the stigma. I would mostly have panic attacks and mental health crises during the school day because of my severe anxiety. I would then go seek help through my guidance counselors, but I started to notice something as I got to middle school. The people around me were trying the best that they could, but there were not enough resources to help me. I started to see this in high school as well, but not just in me and my fellow classmates and my friends. At the beginning of the school year, I conducted a survey to get a better understanding of how other students saw this. One question I asked was, when feeling stressed, depressed, or irritated in school, have you been able to have a conversation with your guidance counselor or a staff member? 83.3% of 24 people said no. Another question I had asked was, do you believe the school has enough resources? 87.5% of those said no. In school, we do learn about mental health, but it is vague, generalized, and outdated. An example of this is Career Compass. Now, I do know that this is a state mandated curriculum, but I just want to let you guys bring attention to what is going on. A student brought this to my attention where a lesson on sexual assault states that if you are the perpetrator of a sexual assault, your reputation may be damaged permanently, but you can earn back people's respect by working to make amends and change your behavior. Another lesson on ADHD stated that there is nothing besides you making you fidget. I'm here to bring awareness to the rising issue and offer my full support in you guys to resolve this. I have complete faith in you guys in any matter of our school that our schools face. I've seen many bright-faced students in our schools who are depressed, anxious, and even worse, suicidal. I'm asking the board to please utilize better resources such as social workers inside our schools, updated mental health resources, and information, and more support inside of the schools. Understand that we are trying. Our grades are slipping not because we are lazy, but because our mental health is at risk. I thank you guys so much for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you. Next up is Karen Buck, followed by Jennifer Vigil.
Did you hear her? Lift these COVID regulations and maybe our kids will be doing a heck of a lot better. Now, in my opinion, if you or your family have taken the COVID vaccine and the boosters, do not be afraid. Therapeutics and community support will come. This statement will make more sense in the coming days and weeks and months ahead. Now, stay at home if you're sick. You've taken that to a whole new level of insanity. Nobody understood a daggone thing. All we know is more COVID harassment, okay? And I guarantee you that our so-called leadership will guarantee the COVID harassment will continue. They think you're afraid and you will comply. This is the very definition of tyranny. You're seeing it right before your eyes. Now, let's talk about Amplify, the dangerous pedagogy disguised as Amplify English Language Arts program. The question is, why do we need this very expensive and dangerous program that has never been justified? By now, everybody in this room knows what Amplify is all about. 138 parents have seen my research on Facebook. This board received an email from me last Friday, and the research will be published in the newspaper this week. And if you think 2 photographs is all I have for the bad stuff, you're wrong. There's a hell of a lot more. The Amplify program right now is being tested at South Jefferson and Blue Ridge Elementary schools without the approval of level-headed parents. Instead, it was approved by a group of team players chosen by our so-called leadership. The Amplify program uses fragmented lessons far beyond the sophistication level of the target of the grade it targets. Why does a first grader need to know about the mummification process in great detail? Mummification. The Amplify program targets low-income rural communities with low test scores. Aren't we 48th in the country? But the most disturbing thing about Amplify is that the last 2 owners, founders, and directors of the Amplify program have very cozy ties to famous billionaire imprisoned child sex traffickers. One of these criminals died in prison. The other one is in prison now. In my opinion, the purchase of this dangerous program will further confuse the children and young adults, will guarantee more low test scores, and will further fund the child sex trafficking trade with taxpayer dollars. Now, our leadership will have many team players write glowing reviews of this Amplify program, as you just saw. They will bury the truth and convince this board to buy this program. Parents, do you see how this works? You need to reject this program and remove it from our 2 schools immediately. And instead of...
Next up is Jennifer Vigil, followed by Josh Steers. Ms. Buck, please. Thank you. Jennifer Vigil, followed by Josh Steers.
Good evening. Tonight I come to you as an educator and parent of Jefferson County Schools. I'm very hesitant to speak in front of this board tonight as an educator because I do truly fear retaliation within the county. I will take time to begin by speaking first as a parent. How many of you actually watched the Super Bowl last night? How many of you attend activities that are indoors and outdoors outside of your homes? We all spend time outside of our homes, may it be sporting events, birthday parties, celebrations, Super Bowl parties, shopping, and so much more. We are living our lives how we choose to. Have you noticed that children are not masked up when they are not at school? After watching the Super Bowl last night and seeing all these surrounding counties and states lift their mask mandates, I asked, when are we going to lift ours and allow the parents to make the parental choice for their children? Parents are sick and tired of masking up their children. Parents have begun to get physicians to get doctor notes to exempt them from mask. One doctor stated in their exemption, wearing a mask does more harm than wearing one. Parents are tired. Students are tired of feeling ignored, trapped, and not heard. I ask, what are we doing mentally and socially to support our children? However, now, as an educator, I have a duty to speak. As an educator, I'm speaking about masking and what it's doing to the education of our children. Yes, I know speaking up tonight is going to put a target on my back. However, children and staff members each and every day mask up because of a mandate. Children are unable to effectively communicate each and every day. And I'm not just referring to verbal communication. I'm referring to all forms of communication. We communicate as individuals through facial expressions, our hands, and body language. How do you think children feel right now? In a class, I have students that are struggling to learn the sounds of letters because of the mask, and they're getting confused. I have students that are very shy and shut down because they are afraid to speak up due to masking. They feel as though you can't speak. We are silencing our children each and every day. You have also silenced the educators because all we want to do is teach. And like you said, we love our children and we love our students. We sacrifice every day to be with them. The staff in this county is exhausted, not physically, but mentally. Now, as a parent and educator, I come here tonight and truly ask for you to consider allowing for parental and adult choice. As I've stated before, allow the parents to be the parents, and you as the Board of Education, be the education. Allow adults to make their own choice and do what they want. We are capable of making our own, as we do each and every day. As a parent, I'll leave you with this. Just remember, a medical degree is required to practice medicine. A mask is a medical device by definition. If the person issuing a mandate is not an individual's doctor and not
Thank
a
you, ma'am.
doctor at all,
Ms. Vigil.
then
thank
they
you very
cannot.
much. Next. Next, we have Josh Steers, followed by Susan Benziger.
Good evening, everyone. I'll just start by saying I'm sure some of you are, or I don't want to be here as much as some of you probably don't want me here. But my name is Josh Steers. Let me first say I'm a proud resident of Jefferson County. I love what this state stands for and look forward to what its future holds. I have one child in elementary school in Jefferson County, with two more following shortly behind him. As for COVID, I, like most folks in here, was deeply concerned at the onset of this pandemic. The uncertainty was frightening. Our so-called leaders turned what should have been a no-brainer reaction into yet another party line argument. Americans received guidance, later proven to be wrong. We were told repeatedly to stop the spread and trust the science. Well, as we continue down this seemingly never-ending pandemic, the uncertainty that previously frightened us has frayed. Our political leaders still choose their positions based on red versus blue, and the notion of trust the science seems to only apply when the narrative dictates as such. Shoot, just last night, I watched more than 70,000 people cram into a football stadium in one of the most strictest states in our union. Spectators included politicians, the Hollywood elite, and social media influencers who advocate strict lockdowns for our children. So I ask this rhetorical question. If it's safe for others to go to a football game, then why did my son have to wear a mask when he went to school today? I want to spend my last few seconds citing science from sources who have advocated for strict lockdown measurements. On December 24th, 2021, CNN, I repeat, CNN, medical analyst Dr. Leanna Wen said of masks, cloth masks are little more than facial decoration, like this, facial decoration. There's no place for them in light of Omicron. She went on to say that this is what scientists and public health officials have been saying for months, many months, in fact. Additionally, data now suggests that children not only have extremely low risk of contracting COVID, but also they naturally have the capability of evading SARS-CoV-2 virus due to the lack of ACE2 receptors in their nostrils. Concerns are being raised regarding psychological damage and why a mask is not just a mask. There is tremendous psychological damage to children with potential catastrophic impacts on the cognitive development of our children. This is even more critical in relation to children with special needs or those within the autism spectrum who need to be able to recognize facial expressions as part of their ongoing development. I'm not here asking for you all to do something extreme. In fact, I'm not asking for you to put our children in danger. I'm actually asking quite the opposite. I'm asking that you support the growth of these children by removing this needless mask mandate so they can grow, learn, and thrive for the betterment of our county, our state, and our country. Thank you.
Next up is Susan Benziger, followed by Amy Lindsay.
Well, good evening. I hope you can hear me.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
came to actually thank you, the whole board, very much for the time and effort that it takes to be on the board. I've been on boards before, and I don't think everyone realizes how difficult it can be. You have a lot of hard decisions to make. You have experts telling you what to do. You have your heart telling you what to do. You have parents, you have children telling you what to do. And I just wanted to take a quick moment to say how much I appreciate the fact that you're taking your time and doing this. And that's really it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Next up is Amy Lindsay, followed by Patricia Elhorn.
Good evening. Thank you so much for allowing me the chance to speak tonight. I'd also like to say thank you for all of your hard work and thank you for the information of the earlier meeting. It was very informative to hear all the sorts of things that you need to consider to make this decision, that it's not just a simple, oh, masks are bad. I mean, none of us actually enjoy them. I mean, and I think I speak pretty universally for that, but it was very informative to hear everything that you need to take into account in order to make a decision for everyone's children. Universities have it much easier. Children or young adults at Shepherd University are tested so frequently that when one of them does test positively, they're able to quarantine. Very helpful. Even with that, every single person in my household got COVID, but at least we knew it was coming and we were all able to quarantine successfully and just stay home. So thank you so much for all your time, your energy, everything you put up with. I really thought Jefferson County was better than what I've heard recently. But oh, and as far as mummies are concerned, yes, every first grader does want to know about mummies. I think that is also universally true. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Patricia Elhorn, followed by Beth Zimmerman.
Good evening. I'm not really a public speaker, but I'm here as a teacher. I'm a kindergarten teacher at South Jefferson, and I'm one of the pilot teachers that have piloted the Amplify, the core knowledge language program this year. I've been in this field 36 years, and I've seen a lot of reading programs, everything from the letter people all the way up to Journeys until to this program. And in my personal opinion, in my professional opinion, this is one of the best programs we've ever had. It's a total package of knowledge, phonics, and skills in writing for kindergarten students. My kindergarten students have loved learning about Ray Charles, and they've learned about Johnny Appleseed and about Helen Keller and George Washington Carver, and they've learned about nursery rhymes. Well, you know what? Nursery rhymes was something of the past that we had when we were children. Now they're back. And we've learned about stories and fables and the 5 senses and plants. And guess what? I'm learning about Old MacDonald's farm tomorrow. And my kids are so excited to learn about farming and farm animals. That's just a few topics. I'm asking you, please adopt this program for our children. It will benefit all of Jefferson County students. Thank you.
Thank you. Beth Zimmerman, followed by Claire Ann Ath.
Good evening. My name is Beth Zimmerman and I teach kindergarten as well at South Jefferson Elementary School. I presented at the last board meeting the CKLA slideshow for the K-5 program. I'm currently piloting this program in my kindergarten class and I absolutely love it. Like she said, I've been teaching for 15 years, 9 years in kindergarten, 6 years in first grade, and this is the most systematic, explicit reading instructional program that I have ever taught. It just makes sense. I have even specials teachers stop me in the hallway and they come to tell me, I've noticed a difference in your children's abilities when it comes to line strokes, directionality, rhyme, rhythm, beat. And this is all due to the consistent foundational auditory phonemic awareness with full body movements that this program provides in my kindergarten classroom from the very beginning of the year. As we start moving from the phonemic awareness part to the phonics portions of the letter to sound correspondence, the students are foundationally ready to make those connections. This, unlike other programs that we have used in the past, where we've jumped right into naming the letters, writing the letters, repeating the sounds straight out of the gate, this gives their time to build those building blocks. And we don't start all that till later in the fall when they're foundationally ready to do so. The topics in our knowledge lessons, the stories that we cover, both literary and informational, hone in on our science and social studies curriculum. Each topic is rich in grade appropriate vocabulary, and my students love exploring the focus words and the multi-meaning words. So in conclusion, if this program is implemented in the K-5 classrooms across Jefferson County, I guarantee you over the next few years, you're going to see reading scores skyrocket. And I will end by saying these last 4 words. It just makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Clara and Ath, followed by Jason Hawkins.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Claire Ann Ath, and I'm a mother and commissioner here in Jefferson County. I'm here tonight because I'm concerned. I'm concerned that the Board of Education has been ignoring the science surrounding COVID-19 and ignoring some of the concerns of parents like myself in the community. I believe that parents know what is best for their children, and I, for one, support their parental right to make the appropriate health and education decisions for their families. As a county commissioner and as a PhD student, when I examine a policy and whether or not it should be implemented, I have to weigh all the possible outcomes and effects. Otherwise, I'm not doing my job. On the question of whether our children should be mandated to wear masks in schools, the science is clear. It is long past time we end the authoritarian mask mandates on our children. The potential educational and developmental harms of mandatory masking policy far outweighs any benefits in stopping the spread of COVID-19. To date, the CDC has been unable to provide studies with concrete and statistically significant data to show that schools with mask mandates have lower COVID-19 transmission rates than schools without mask mandates. As previously mentioned tonight, even CNN's top health expert, Dr. Wen, has called Biden's mask mandate to end and added that the decision of whether to mask children should be left up to parents. She stated that masks are, and I quote, little more than facial decorations. This sentiment was echoed by our very own BoE member, Lori Ogden, who the other week at the candidate forum had openly admitted that the science has shown masks are not as effective as we once thought. Why then do we continue to require them? Further, the US policy of mandated masks in schools is an outlier. The World Health Organization advises against masks for children under 5 and only selectively for children under 11. The majority of European nations and my own family in Ireland has kept schools open without requiring masks. Many of those who favor masking have argued that it's a small inconvenience for the greater good. However, masking our children is not a damage-free intervention. As mentioned, it negatively affects learning and causes significant social and emotional harm. As the mother of a toddler and another little one due in April, I am deeply concerned about how masking will affect this generation of young people. As with any policy, risks must be weighed versus benefits, and there is no sound proof that universal masking in schools is beneficial, and I strongly urge you to repeal the mask mandate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Jason Hawkins. I'm sorry? Oh, okay. Thank you. Then Carrie Mahoney, followed by Mary Margaret Reagan.
Good evening. My name is Carrie Mahoney, and I'm the very proud principal of South Jefferson Elementary. I'm here tonight in support of the adoption of the Amplify CKLA program. We have had the privilege of piloting this program at South Jefferson this year, and I have personally witnessed the impact of this research-based and highly rated program in our K-5 classrooms. Our incredible staff at South Jefferson has been advocating for a curriculum that provided explicit phonics instruction, higher level thinking skills, a strong vocabulary component, and the building of background knowledge to impact reading comprehension and reading success. Through our research on the science of reading, we believe that CKLA definitely meets those criteria. However, I would prefer that you hear from our own professionals about the efficacy of this program. Fourth grade teacher Jane Strom shared that the biggest positive she has seen is student writing. Her students wrote a 3-paragraph personal narrative during the first grading period using this program. Parents have commented how wonderful it is to see their children writing, and her students are proud of the level of writing they have produced this year. First grade teacher and South Jefferson parent Becca Jenkins shared that as a parent, she has personally witnessed enthusiasm and excitement for the curriculum through her daughter, who is learning about ancient Greek civilizations in 2nd grade and comes home wanting to role play about the historical figures that she has discovered. They are now doing their own research at home and looking for books on the topic to read together at night. Kindergarten teacher Taylor Fox shared that all students have an opportunity to be successful with this program, regardless of the lack of prior knowledge coming into school. Building their confidence early shows our students that they are capable of learning and applying new information. Finally, I was visiting a kindergarten classroom, Mrs. Zimmerman's, last week, and one of the students asked me to stay because they wanted me to have fun with them. I witnessed them discussing deciduous trees and the shedding of leaves with great gusto while learning about multi-meaning words. The first grade class next door had written their names using hieroglyphics as they learned about ancient Egypt and the pyramids. Each unit has a family letter that is shared, giving information about the upcoming unit of study to our families. For those who deem the material too difficult for our students, I would invite you into our classrooms to see our students' level of engagement, their retention of the material, and the way that they make connections to their own word through the use of this curriculum. The academic growth that we have experienced through piloting CKLA has created an excitement in our school and is why we are in favor of the adoption of CKLA. I appreciate your support and trust of the professional judgment of the South Jefferson staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Mary Margaret Reagan.
Good evening. I'm Mary Margaret Reagan. I teach kindergarten at Blue Ridge Primary, and I'm also the other pilot school. And, you know, I'd first like notice I didn't bring my notes up because I'm thinking, you know what, I'm just going to speak on this program because I am in support of this. And when I first got this program, I'm like, what? Are you kidding me? This is a lot. But you know what? I have really, dug into this program, and it is absolutely amazing. I started my career 28 years ago with all ears. I've worked through Reading Street and Journeys, which thank goodness it's gone. This program is exactly what these children need. It is so foundational. I mean, the knowledge, there's knowledge portion and there's skills portion. With the knowledge, one of the things that I was most impressed with were the level of comprehension questions, which our children just don't have a level of comprehension. It's one of our, our greatest deficits, because we're just not teaching our children to think enough. These questions at the end of each of these stories are all about comprehension. The story of Helen Keller, as some of my comrades have said, first I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm teaching Helen Keller in kindergarten. But let me tell you something. It's a lesson on perseverance. No child could tell me I can't do something. Really? Helen Keller did it. She was deaf and blind and she never gave up. And you know something? Those children raised a whole new level, and like, well, Helen Keller did it. I can do it. So it's stories that may sound above their level, but you know what? We need to raise that level. That's part of our problem. With the skills portion, it is so foundational. I've had to relearn a whole way to teach. This is not the letter M. This is It's all with sounds. But what is reading about? So this system is so sequential. It is building the most incredible foundation that I have seen with the students, like I said, in all of my 28 years. And I'm the first one to say if something's, I don't like it. This one, it looks intense. And I know some people can kind of be a little intimidated by the level of workbooks and the level of things, but it is an amazing program because of that. The constant repetition, 3,000 repetitions, before it hits muscle memory. Well, sure enough, even if the reading, they don't introduce, the reading, the decodable readers until they've had those sounds, and then it's just over and over, and they just kind of beat it to death. But it's perfect. It's what children need. So I would definitely say, if you want to see it in action, come to South Jefferson, come to Blue Ridge. You're always welcome to come into our classrooms to see what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, that concludes citizens' comments for this evening. Next, we have the consent agenda. Dr. Gibson, are there any changes? Well, there are changes, but.
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I would point out to the board and to the public. One of the things that has actually been very wonderful to see tonight is a great deal of communication. We're engaged in a very complicated enterprise in terms of educating children and serving a public with a really wide range of views and experiences. And so one of the things that we always struggle with is getting information out. Either we're providing some people with too much information, other people with not enough, some folks in ways that they appreciate, others want us to do it differently. And so we ask questions and we learn every time. One of the things that we had seen over a couple of meetings was that we still had, even as we've been working with the board over the years in terms of the agenda and clarity and giving information. And once again, we felt like we had reached a good place, and we still had some confusion over positions. And is this something new? And is this something different? And where does this come from? So we set up a structure which I hope will be pleasing. We met with several of the staff and tested it out with some folks for clarity. I actually did a test run on some non-educational people to say, does this make sense to you? So you'll notice that under the HR agendas now, we have them sectioned out into some very, very clear categories. New personnel who are being recommended for already existing positions, and telling you how many there are. This was already a job here. It already existed. It's been funded. It's been there. We are just now recommending someone to fill that position because it's been empty for some reason. Sometimes it's because it's that season. Sometimes it's because, we got a mid-year graduate and filled something. The second category is current personnel transferring into or being recommended for already existing positions. Again, this was often a source of confusion because we would have an employee who had a existing job, but they wanted to move into another job and they interviewed and got it. And sometimes it caused confusion over, is this a new job? Does this old job still exist? We then also had a category for leave of absences so that you knew which positions the employee still had. They simply weren't serving in for a period of time because they had a need. The creation of new positions, extracurriculars or stipends, so that you would know something was triggered as a completely new and into existence position based on some need we had. And the last one, separations, meaning that for retirement or resignation or having passed away, those are separations where those employees are no longer with the system. So there weren't changes in the consent agenda in terms of the content. We added a lot of clarification to those. We hope that this makes sense. And I want to publicly thank, I'm sure that she thought I was crazy. While she's still, I think you're 2 staff people down right now, still 2 staff people down and working like crazy. I said, please, can we try this? And she went in and worked hard with some focus groups and got this done. So I just wanted to publicly thank her and to talk about the new format and just to say thank you very much, Jeff.
Thank you, Ms. Loring. Are there any other actual changes to the actual consent agenda?
No. No corrections or changes for you this evening.
Okay. And as far as the consent agenda goes, I'll need to recuse myself. And Ms. Ogden, do you need to recuse yourself as well?
Yes. For those that see, my husband's name is on the agenda, so I have to recuse myself because I don't want to have to vote for or against him. I've convinced him that we have a teaching shortage and we need help. So the rotating schedule and 1 or 2 days off a week, he needs to be able to go to work. So we need help. So.
All right. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second? Thank you, Mr. Cable. Now that there's a motion, is there any discussion?
Yeah, I have a question. I just want to know more about number 55, new position.
Yes, Miss Lynn had done a presentation a few weeks ago about her STEAM labs and the STEAM kits. Do you remember? Okay, so those are the positions that she discussed to support that program. And it's not positions, it's an extracurricular assignment. So kind of like what you've seen with the ELA adoption and the science adoption, it's opportunities for our current employees to participate in programs.
Are they throughout the county or at one school?
I believe so, yes.
Throughout the county? Oh, okay.
Yep, so wherever usually what she does is once we get it posted, and if it's approved to post, then typically where the programs lie or where they'll be servicing, she usually tries to get individuals that are going to be close to those locations.
Okay, thank you.
Was that it? Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have, and I believe number 11 is part of the consent agenda. Was that correct, Dr. Gibson? All right, so unfinished business. Number 12A, review of comments and action on approval to adopt the listed ELA instructional materials for grades K through 12.
Hello again. Rather than me do a lot of the speaking tonight, I would like to ask all the teachers that did all the work to come down here with me, those members of the Instructional Resource Committee who put in all the time reviewing the resources, met with their colleagues repeatedly, had lots of dialogue, and brought this very difficult recommendation to you. So I'm going to ask them to come down. They didn't know I was going to do this. And I know you know many of their faces, but I'm also going to ask them to introduce themselves too, please.
Emily Gregson, Charlestown Middle School. Aaron Kirk, Charlestown Middle School. Andrea Stewart, Blue Ridge Elementary. Kristen Whitenauer, South Jefferson Elementary.
Anna Mia Fennell, Harpers Ferry Middle School. Tracy Mocker, Washington High School. Katie Ritzenthaler, Instructional Support Facilitator.
Louise McDonald, Wildwood Middle.
All right, thank you. So just a couple items I want to bring up before we ask for your approval. I'd also like to thank Mary Lind, Tara Mahoney, Joel Silver, and Michelle Cantley for all their work in leading this group that did, again, such long hours to review the materials, work with their colleagues, and come up with a recommendation. A couple things I want to remind the board, some of these things I have said previously, but teachers teach standards. So everything that our teachers do is related back to the West Virginia College and Career Readiness Standards. What we are recommending to you tonight is a curriculum. It is a resource. It is one way for teachers to teach the standards, whether it be a primary resource, such as what we're recommending, or a secondary resource. People often get confused with standards and curriculum. Also, CKLA and Houghton Mifflin Harcourt are resources, again, to teach those standards. And finally, I know I've said this repeatedly, but these folks make the decision. It's not my decision. It's not the coordinators or Dr. Gibson's decision. This group, per our policy, makes the decision. A couple other things I want to remind everyone of is, again, this is part of a 6-year cycle. That's why ELA adoption is up this year. Science is also part of the adoption, as I mentioned earlier, for this year. One more time, I'd like to remind everyone of the non-negotiables. So these are things that the West Virginia Department of Education requires that we consider and that they consider prior to vetting the materials. That they be interethnic, that they provide equal opportunity, that they have a format that can be virtual, that they have free from political bias, and that they have no reference to the Common Core. So once again, those are the non-negotiables when selecting instructional materials. So with that, I present to you our recommendation for CKLA for grades K through 8 and Houghton Mifflin Harcourt for grades 9 through 12.
Thank you very much. Is there a motion to adopt the ELA instructional materials presented?
So move.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Ogden. Any discussion or question?
Mr. Banks, what's the cost for this program? Approximately.
We have some negotiations to do with professional development, as you might expect, but the cost is approximately 2.3 million across all grade levels, K through 12.
That's all those programs that go. K
Yes.
through 12.
And that's for a 6-year period. That includes consumable materials as well as professional development.
Thank you.
I would just like to say thank you to all the staff who works all day and is exhausted to show up tonight and give your feedback, because I think that really is helpful. And thanks for taking the time to be on the committee, because that is, again, more time that no matter how much you get paid, it's never enough. So there's a lot to go through. So thank you for your feedback, and I'm excited about the new venture.
And hopefully you can salvage what's left of Valentine's Day. So
Yeah. And I'm very excited about the hopefulness of increased reading scores. That's even better.
Yes. Yes.
All right. Anybody have I'm
Yeah,
sorry. Don't have
I think there must be a mistake because does not reference Common Core standards, and this
the amplify is a direct violation of 18-2A-10, prohibiting Common Core reference. I'm concerned that maybe the state overlooked this, but there's an article written by Amplify explaining the ways that they align with Common Core. So, you know, this might get back to the state and then it's it's not accepted. So I'm not sure how that works, but I just pulled this up. I don't know if you could separate Amplify from the high school HMH. Those would be two separate adoptions, correct?
It's one adoption, but two separate vendors, yes.
Right. Yeah, I just I didn't see anything for the HMH, but the K through 8th curriculum seems to be a violation. So
Mr. Banks, is that why the policy is in place, that whatever they vet and give to us and we say yes or no and we give it back to them, that's their job to decide if they think that follows their rules or not? Is that correct?
No, we ensure that the Common Core standards are not referenced. These meet the criteria for the West Virginia College and Career Readiness Standards. I don't know about other states. It could be something that's referenced for other states that do teach the Common Core. I don't know, but all I know is West Virginia Department of Education vets these vendors. One of the non-negotiables is that it's not referenced as Common Core. And we are under the impression that it is teaching the West Virginia College and Career Readiness Standards and not the Common Core standards.
maybe we could look into it. I don't know, but this was updated a week ago by Amplify. How Amplify closed reading is aligned to Common Core standards. They explain how they're aligned with Common Core just from the closed reading, and then they go on to give other examples of how they're emphasize it. It says each book of the last readers emphasizes at least one Common Core reading anchor, and then I'm cut off.
I think one of the things here is that the West Virginia College and Career Readiness Standards and the Common Core standards do have quite a few similarities.
No, it says how Amplify closed reading is aligned to Common Core standards, and they give examples of how they are aligned to Common Core. So they believe they're aligned with Common Core. Somehow the state may have overlooked this. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a mistake, but I just think it's premature. And you said that we are supposed to be assuring the state that that this curriculum doesn't violate this 18-2A-10.
I believe what you're referencing is, if you line up the West Virginia College and Career Readiness Standards and the Common Core standards, there are similarities. There's no doubt about that, but the West Virginia College and Career Readiness Standards are unique to West Virginia. So there's no doubt that they line up with some of the Common Core standards. I don't doubt that.
Yeah, I'm just going by what Amplify is saying. So, I mean, I do know that one of the organizations that supports Amplify and recommends Amplify, I think it's called Ed Research. A citizen wrote in about it and I looked it up. And they are funded by organizations that support Common Core. So that is another example. I mean, I guess if you hadn't brought it up, I wouldn't have looked into it so much, but.
So, Mr. Banks, this is on the West Virginia Department of Ed approved list,
Yes,
correct?
ma'am.
And if we adopt it, then shame on the West Virginia Department of Ed for approving it. I mean, you guys did not go through and pick the standards or anything like that. They had a team, did that, picked 10 choices or whatever it was, and you guys picked from those 10 choices. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Any other questions from the board? All right, so we have a motion on the table to adopt the presented ELA instructional materials for grades K through 12. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Dr. Joy, you opposed? Yep. Thank you. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your Valentine's Day. All right. Next up, we have review and possible action on universal masking policy. Welcome back.
Yes, ma'am.
I have a quick question for you before we proceed. We adopted the masking policy at the beginning of the year, not because we were mask versus no mask. We adopted the masking policy based on quarantine policies. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And those policies have now changed. Their quarantine policies have now changed.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, I feel like we're playing a game where they keep moving the goalposts, but in the beginning, what the situation was if you and I were in a classroom together, and if your parent sent you without a mask and my parent sent me with a mask, if you became COVID positive, I would be out of school as well as you were out of school. Am I understanding correctly?
Yes, ma'am. And simplified, right? Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And now they're saying that your choice to wear a mask or not wear a mask will not affect me being in school or out of school. Is that correct? In general, I mean, if you come to school without a mask and I'm either wearing a mask or I'm vaccinated or asymptomatic, I will not be quarantined as a student. Is that correct?
That is correct, ma'am.
So your parent's choice would not impact my education as far as being in school.
That is correct, ma'am.
Okay.
As long as we follow the mitigating rules. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And as with those rules that they've put in place, could we adapt them to make them work? That would be question number one.
Well, again, yes, ma'am. If the board is amenable to our staff utilizing Jefferson County Schools contact tracing protocol as it existed during the pre-COVID and an endemic, which was essentially protocol for notification and symptoms, as we discussed earlier in the day. That we believe is within the purview of our staff and is manageable with the amount of staff that we have. We also believe we can cover the notification requirements to parents, recognizing that we will have a bit more of a strain at the secondary level based on just the sheer volume of movement of students.
And let's say little Lori, second grader, comes into school and she's positive on a Wednesday, and we find out that she was at a birthday party on Tuesday. Are we responsible for hunting down all of the participants that parent gives us of all of those kids that were at that birthday party?
No, ma'am, we are not responsible for community contact tracing.
Okay, it's only within our classrooms.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just,
I know,
and
teens, yes, you're right. It could, and it is, again, it is another one of those where we have some flexibility, we believe, in the broadness with which we define those things. We also, one of the things that in that description you just had is we did not have the test to stay strategy in place earlier either, which also allows us to, in those instances where there would be a potential for quarantine, to completely negate that.
okay. Do any other board members have any questions or comments about the universal versus no masking policies?
I think we should, if we do anything, we should get out of that business. Not be a part of that anymore. We decided to, excuse me, we decided originally to do what we have been doing until it looked like things were changing. And I think things are changing. And as far as I'm concerned, we need to get out of that business right now. I don't think we need to be in that business. We don't have the people to do it. We don't have, in my opinion, we don't really have we don't have the people. And what I'm trying to say is that the state, basically, their idea is to throw it back onto us. That's what they're after. They don't want to be in it anymore. They want to spend the money, and they want us to take it over. And I don't think that's right. And I don't think our students now are in the position where there is the near danger for those students. There's going to be some kids are going to still get it. There's no question about that. But I don't think it's like it was before. And I think we have to down.
Dr. Gibson, you mentioned earlier, I don't have the slide in front of me, but the additional options that internally our staff recommended. And one of those was allowing, I'm assuming, accommodations for teachers or students that wanted to go from in-person to virtual or virtual to in-person. Is that even an option at this point in time? I mean, we're kind of pretty far into the year for that.
Practically speaking, no, ma'am. We have very limited capacity for shifting students at this point, simply because the virtual and the in-person curriculums are, their pace is different. They are utilizing different resources between Odyssey Ware and West Virginia Learns and where they're at in the classroom. It would be a difficult and detrimental shift for most children if there was a dire situation that we had for a child who was particularly medically fragile and we couldn't work something else out. Sadly, we've been doing this for 2.5 years now. I mean, we've been doing this for a long time, and our staff are pretty good. All that we would ask is some time, if the board is going to make that shift. Give us time to put out a guidance document and explain to parents so we can answer their questions. Our staff are very amenable. They know that parents are worried. They know things have changed and it's confusing. What they want most is to be helpful and to serve children. And that works best when we're all on the same page about what we're doing. So if we had open slots in virtual or for virtual to return back, we would need to look at those numbers and be able to communicate clearly to people. I would say, if you're just speaking generally, then I would say the general answer is no. Movement isn't in the best interest of children, in the most cases not possible. If there was some extraordinary circumstances, we might be able to make one work, but generally speaking, that would not be a good idea.
Okay. And earlier you described one as, the sweet carrot over here, and the other is the big stick over here. Obviously the carrot, that's what we've been doing, that's kind of a no-brainer. The stick, can we accommodate that? With changing the parameters enough to work for our system.
And again, I would, in discussions with the staff, again, they know the difficulty that we're under. They know the difficulty that you face and that we face in implementing these things. In discussion with them, based on the parameters that we write, can we do this? Yet we've done everything that's been asked of us. We'll do this. So yes, I cannot say, again, this just came out. I cannot say what clarification that we will get or what notice we will get or what will go to, you know, a legislator who will be happy or unhappy about it and then choose to take that decision, you know, into the legislature. I don't know. I can't tell you. But right now, the way that it's written, the way that we've looked at it, we believe that we can implement it.
How much time do you think you need?
That is a very, very good question. I will say right now, we've had this discussion. If the board votes for a non-universal masking mandate, we can ask you for whatever time we want to. We will have people who will take their masks off tonight. And I understand that. I get it. I do. In terms of logistics for us, you know, we had those discussions and what we heard pretty consistently from our staff was, hey, can we do it at some sort of a natural break? So I would think that if you're going to do that, that we said, hey, give us the next 4 days. And then on Monday, we come out with, I would say if you had a vote tonight, remove the universal mask policy. Anyone who doesn't wear a mask tomorrow, we're not going to punish. We quite frankly haven't been punishing kids for wearing masks. What we would want the time to do and people's patience to do is to write new guidelines and to give guidance to our staff about what their professional responsibilities are. So if that was the case, we would say, hey, we're going to continue with the current no contact tracing until, you know, Monday, and then here are the new guidelines that'll come up. 4 days to write an entirely new contact tracing and safety policy and guidelines for folks. I think Joyce is over there throwing up as we speak, but we already have the test to stay strategy in place. We do need to get more information. As I said, right now, they do not have a contract for the rapid test. We are purchasing those independently and delivering those independently. We do not have the capacity to bring that up to scale right now.
So as part of that, Dr. Gibson, is it possible that if a parent said, I have a home test, because we're supposed to be able to get those free, I have certainly not tried that myself, but hey, you know, if we could get those, could I show up, like my kid ends up kind of be quarantined or whatever the issue is, I could show up with that test and say, here, test her right in front of me. I don't care. Here's the test. I paid for it myself. She's not coming on to school today. Would that be even an option? Because I provided that test on my own.
Bring your own test?
Absolutely. I'll bring my own test and I'm not taking my kid out. That's going to happen. Like I can
BYOT.
see it. It's a
Okay.
BYOT. I'll bring her all day long. I'll go buy somebody for somebody else's kid if I have to. But do we have the option to keep them in school that way?
We certainly do, yes. Now, as I said, right now, we've been able to manage the volume because it has not been significant in terms of the rapid test, the turnaround, 15 minutes. I would have to tell you, this is unknown territory once we remove these, and to the extent of contact tracing, I don't know how many positives that we'll get, but do we have the ability to accept someone coming here and giving us a home test that they took here? Yes, we certainly do. Under the new guidelines, yes, we do. All along, what this board has asked for and dealt with, and what our staff have dealt with, is sometimes you just get handed just god awful cards. You just do, and you play them the best that you can to the best of your ability, and make the decisions that are best interest of kids. And we just got handed a whole new deck. So can we play it? Yes, we certainly can. Can I promise you that some of these won't change soon? No, I can't. But if the board votes tonight to remove the mask mandate, am I confident that we can have by next Monday to turn out to our families and to our staff some guidelines and protocols? We need to send something out tonight that says keep calm and carry on. And we'll have you by Monday, more specifics on each one of these things so that people know what to expect. It'll be a rough transition. Every one of the transitions has been rough, but can we do it? These people can do anything. They're pretty amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Okay. Any other comments or questions by the board? Would anyone care to make a motion? I don't know whether to make it.
No, I make a motion that we take away the universal masking policy and allow it to be a parent choice and give the staff till Monday to have all those guidelines and policies and the new policies implemented.
So your motion then is to adopt the non-universal mask policy that the West Virginia Department of, was it Department of Health or Department of Ed?
Both, they issued a joint, it
Jointly.
came to us through WVDE, but it was a joint issue.
Okay. So Ms. Ogden, your motion is to adopt the non-universal masking policy given recently by the West Virginia Department of Health and West Virginia Department of Ed. Is that correct?
Correct. And to give Dr. Gibson and the staff until Monday to put those guidelines out that best meet the needs of Jefferson County schools.
And Monday is the 21st.
Second.
Which is a still 2-hour dismissal day,
I believe it's 2 hour early.
2-hour early dismissal. I need to recuse myself.
Okay, so Ms. Ogden made a motion to adopt the West Virginia Department of Health and West Virginia Department of Ed recent policy on non-universal masking, and Mr. Cable seconded. Is that correct?
Yes.
All right, and Dr. Joy, you're recusing yourself?
Correct. My husband's an infectious disease scientist, and he works closely with Dr. Fauci and the CDC, and I was advised that this borders on a conflict of interest. So, a conflict of
Okay.
interest, or that I should recuse myself because there's a financial interest.
Okay, so we have a motion on the table by Ms. Ogden, a second by Mr. Cable. Dr. Joyce recusing herself. All in favor of approving the non-universal masking policy written by the West Virginia Department of Health and West Virginia Department of Ed, effective Monday, February 21st, with whatever accommodations you need to make it work for the county. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. And once again, just good luck. And thank you very much for, adopting to the ever-changing game that they keep handing us.
And thank
So-
you to the nurses who have gone above and beyond in this ridiculous.
And I would highly recommend engaging the health department to help do whatever contact tracing and everything that we're required to do, just because of the fact that I think they should help us.
And they have. They trust and believe there is no ill intent. They have worked very, very hard, and they have been our partners in all things. They are as equally victims of just tragic circumstances for the last several years as anyone else. So certainly happy to work with them.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Madam Superintendent, do you have any other comments this evening?
No, I would simply like to thank all of the staff who turned out tonight to address issues that they're passionate about and that they care about. School systems are a microcosm of society, and they always function best with involvement. So I appreciate their involvement.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Cable, did you have something to share with us this evening?
No, I'm not gonna do that tonight.
Okay. All right, and we have an executive session.
Yes, ma'am. We have an executive session for personnel matters, and I anticipate action on the part of the board when we come back into open session.
Okay. Is there a motion to go into executive session? Thank you, Mr. Osborne. Is there a second? Second. Yep. Thank you, Ms. Ogden. All in favor of going to executive session for personnel action? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thank you.